Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to another Stewardship in Motion session. I'm your host, Lionel Allen. Welcome to another live. Glad to be here this evening. Uh, Pretty powerful day. We're currently hosting the Stewardship Reset. It's a 3-day webinar, free webinar. We're on day 2. We've been having an awesome time. People have been coming in. We've been sharing some pretty poignant and important stewardship facts to just keep everyone engaged, share some value, and serve in the best way possible. But tonight, as usual, it's our Wednesday night session. It's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to go live with our Stewardship in Motion series. And if you've been hanging with us for a little while, this series really is about setting the context, giving us the mindset, giving us some things to think about and process throughout our stewardship journey. So tonight we've got a pretty important session. Let's go ahead and pull that title slide up. So we are going to discuss tonight the comparison trap. Yes, that trap that we all get sucked into. No one's exempt. If you have feelings, if you have eyes that are functioning and working, and you are here in the world relating with other people, as individuals, yeah, we have our own perspectives, we have our own thoughts, but a lot of times the things around us lead us into this comparison trap. And so tonight, we're just going to take a look at what the Bible has to say about covetousness. So our scripture reference for tonight will be found in Luke chapter 12, verse 15. Let me advance the slides here. So it reads, "Watch out, be on the guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." Let me read that again. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted in my view there. So let me read that one more time for you. Luke chapter 12, verse 15, New International Version. "Watch out, be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And that hits home. That's a complete 21st century message. Seems as though the more you study the Bible, if you study it as a historical document, a historical record, if you study it as a book of instruction for your life, it's funny how a book that was written over 2,000 years ago can have such an impact on today. And that lets you know that this book was really grounded on people and people's behaviors. And as long as people have been alive, they've struggled with a lot of the same problems. So let's begin to unpack this tonight. I won't keep you too long. If you know me, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, so I'm a Knicks fan. Go Knicks. I spared you tonight of wearing all my gear. Trust me, it's all ready. I'm going to go put it on right after the live. I don't want to distract you, so go Knicks, right? So let's get back to this word. So notice what Jesus says in this scripture. Watch out. And why? Because greed and covetousness, it's a real sneaky thing. Nobody ever wakes up and says, you know what, I want to be greedy. It creeps in, and usually it creeps in because of comparison, through envy, dissatisfaction, constantly looking for more, looking for the things that other people have. And in this scripture, Jesus is warning us not to let our possessions become the measure of our success. Now, I have to confess with you, this is something that I've struggled with in my life too. As you begin to walk on your wealth journey, as you begin to acquire assets, as you begin to acquire these assets and titles and positions, it's very easy to be attach your identity. That's how I want to say it. It's very easy to begin to attach your identity to your net worth, to your possessions, to your belongings, to how much cash you have. And I think that's why we struggle so much in our society. We struggle with, in certain cultures, people wear large jewelry. That's a reason why this designer lifestyle has become so prevalent. We seek the, what's the right words? The acceptance. We seek um, the title, the status. We want people to look at us and, to a certain degree, envy our position, right? And I think that is where it begins to creep in. And what the word is telling us is that life is so much bigger than that. So, as usual, how do we interpret this? How do we interpret this scripture for our lives today? This slide does a great job of explaining it. Comparison creates pressure. Pressure to compete, pressure to measure up, pressure to exceed. All of those things come in once you begin to compare yourself with other people, their situation, their finances, their standard of life, their quality of life. But what I've found is that contentment, and this is found over and over. It's a concept if you are walking in your stewardship journey, if you're actually reading the Bible and trying to understand how to be a good steward of your time, your talents, your treasure, you will know that contentment, it really creates a certain level of peace once you're comfortable with wherever you are on your journey in life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's really the emphasis of it all. Financial peace is often less about your income, it's often less about what you have, and more about your mindset and the wisdom that you execute in your decisions. So let me ask you something tonight, and let's be perfectly honest. Have you ever been like perfectly content until you saw something that someone else had? It happens a lot. Maybe you were scrolling, maybe you have a new friend or coworker, they just get a new car, and then you're like, man, that's a really nice car. My car is like 10 years old. Maybe I should upgrade my car too, right? Maybe it's your house. Maybe you've been living in a home. It's a beautiful home. And then one of your neighbors or friends, they do a big renovation. They invite you over to show you the new renovation. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, maybe I should take out a HELOC and redo my kitchen and my baths. That comparison, it's hard to escape it, particularly in a social media environment where all of these images, all of these videos are not like this conversation that I'm having with you today that's authentic and original, and we're really trying to get to the truth of the matter. Most of the time, the stuff we see on social media is so contrived, it's fake, it's it's simulated. That's probably the best word to use. People are simulating wealth. They're simulating a lifestyle and they're projecting that on social media. And we see one image and we think that's how their entire life is. We don't know if that stuff is rented, borrowed, if it just belongs to someone else and they just slid in and took a quick pic. All those things are things we have to remember and keep top of mind when we start to feel this comparison, when we start to feel like our life is not enough. Now, here's what we really want to begin to drill down to. It's the comparison thing really, it's not because we need more. It's really because we start believing that we deserve it. And I talked about this earlier when in our stewardship reset. That's probably the number one thing I hear from clients. I hear from people that I mentor, large groups that I speak with. People say, you know, I work hard, Lionel. I don't know what you're talking about, this budget thing. I deserve to enjoy my money. I work hard, I deserve it. It's a sense of entitlement that we create for ourselves. And often a lot of poor financial decisions derive from that state of mind. So I want you to think about this for a second. Do you have things in your life right now, the very things that you once prayed for, and then all of a sudden they become things you're no longer grateful for? Ask yourself, not because the thing itself has changed or degraded, but your focus has changed. Why? because comparison can create dissatisfaction. It can lead to lifestyle inflation. Like I said, you can begin to just look for things just to acquire them. Unnecessary debt is a big part of it as we try to chase these things that give us a sense of luxury, give us a sense of status. Um, and they lead to a lot of impatience and a lot of pressure. A lot of times we pull the trigger on things that's maybe something that's right, is a good thing to have, but it's the wrong timing. So this comparison thing, it whispers that you should have more, you deserve more, you're behind in the game. That's something that I've struggled with, those internal thoughts. And uh, before long, you stop managing your own life and then you start chasing someone else's life or the image of a life that you expect that you should have, or something that someone else has that you have um, agreed with them that it's a higher level or bigger status for them. So, one of the easiest ways to destroy your financial progress is to consistently compare your chapter 3. You may be only on chapter 3 in your life or in your journey to someone else's chapter 20, someone else's chapter 40. You don't know where they've come from. You don't know their income, how much debt they have, what sacrifices have been made, what stresses they've dealt with. And a wise man once said, a rapper from Brooklyn, he said, more money, more problems. I've actually found that to be true. The more things you take on, everything comes with its tier of maintenance, its tier of problems. Anyone who drives a luxury car or foreign car could tell you that the oil changes aren't the same as your American-made Chevy or Chrysler. Those are things that we don't think about on the front end, but when we see it initially and we begin to covet these things, those are the things that make us feel like we're behind or we're inadequate. And I've seen people take on multiple leases, buy things, max out their credit cards, and it's really just to impress other people. And it's funny, I once heard a guy say that in some cultures, right, poor people spend all of their money trying to impress other poor people. And it doesn't make sense. And you know exactly what I'm saying. You've probably seen it. It's probably affected your life the same way it's affected my life. But what I want to do tonight is give you a framework that you can follow, and just so we can cut this thing off. Why? Because comparison, it's expensive. Let's just face it. It becomes expensive trying to compete with what someone else has. So let's dive into this framework. I'm just going to give it to you right here up front. Here it is. It's 3 steps, 3 simple steps. It's a contentment framework. It's 3 steps to just help guard your peace and build contentment wherever you are personally right now. So step 1, what is that? You have to identify and recognize what your personal comparison triggers are. I don't care about the newest pair of Jordans that just came out that people are paying $500 for. That doesn't resonate with me. Won't bother me. But a 100-unit apartment building, you hit me right there. Now I begin to compare my portfolio against what someone else has. And then that feeling sets in of inadequacy and what I've done isn't enough. And I need to kind of go to the next level. We all have our taste and our flavor of the things that trigger us. So the first thing to understand is identify your trigger. What is the first step of any behavioral change? It's always awareness. You have to ask yourself simply, what causes me to feel financially inadequate? Is it social media? Is it your friends? Is it your family, your coworkers, those influencers that we always talk about? You have to identify and understand what your trigger is and really begin to insulate yourself against those situations that lead you into that feeling that you're inadequate, that you're not enough, you don't have enough, you're not far enough ahead, and begin to mitigate those feelings. right? So you can't guard against what you have not identified or you refuse to identify. I talk a lot on this channel about avoidance. Avoidance is a big deal. A lot of times we avoid things just not to have those difficult conversations. That's something I struggle with myself. I don't mind being transparent with all of you. But understand that comparison begins wherever your gratitude ends. You begin not feeling as grateful for the things that you have right now and begin to pursue another level or something else, that's where your gratitude begins to end and your comparison begins. Let's look at the second step, appreciation. You've heard this before. There's so many studies about gratitude, how it affects our health, our mood, uh, gratitude, appreciation. Those are the antidote for those feelings. I remember growing up, I'm first generation American. My family's all from the Caribbean, Barbados, a little tiny island in the Caribbean. It's famous because there's a gal named Rihanna who's from there. So I remember growing up, and the old people in the church used to sing this song, Count Your Blessings, Name Them One by One. And that song still resonated with me. I remember being like a little guy, 5, 6 years old, and we'd be belting out this song. And the whole purpose of that song was around contentment. It's understanding where you've come from, what the Lord has already done for you personally, not comparing it to someone else's situation, someone else's blessings, but looking exclusively at your situation and finding contentment right there in your own situation, in your own benefits that you have. I think a lot of times we just don't do that assessment of how blessed we are before we begin to compare ourselves to someone else. So I think the strongest antidote for that covetousness that the Bible, that scripture is talking about, is gratitude. Think about what God has already provided for you. Think about the prayers that were already answered for you. And this has been a big deal for me throughout my transition over the last 2 years, leaving corporate America, great six-figure salary, and now transitioning into a business owner, entrepreneur, investor. You ride the ups and downs of that. And for a while, I started to really be down on myself. Then I had to come back and realize that there were things that were already answered for me. It may not have come in the way that I wanted it, but the end result was beneficial for me. I may not have had the dollars in hand, but guess what? I got a son, stellar athlete. He just got a scholarship to go to college. 70% of his tuition is paid. Now, I could have paid the 70% like I did with the other kids, but wow, what a blessing that the Lord provided, that this young man is able to follow his dream, follow his goal, and there was a financial blessing that enriched the entire family out of it. Those are the kind of things that we need to begin understanding, concentrating on, and really begin to digest these things. When we're scrolling, we begin to see these images, these contrived things, these simulations, like I talked about earlier, that make us begin to feel like we're inadequate or we don't have enough. So a wise steward, they don't focus on what's missing. They recognize what is actually present in their life. So remember, just like it says at the bottom of the slide, gratitude, the reason for gratitude is to protect your personal peace. Let's go on to our third step here. Again, this is not difficult stuff. I just wanted to initiate this conversation, have a quick thought around it. Any of you who are engaging with us, feel free to jump in the chat and talk about your thoughts around the steps that we've already outlined and what you've experienced and what do you do to combat this feeling of comparison, the feeling of not enough, that feeling of covetousness, like you just have to have more, that emerges so often in today's life. All right, the third step, this is actually my word for the year. My word for the year is alignment. So align yourself. Begin to align your thoughts with your purpose. Take off the external lens, looking all about you, social media, a lot of times we're taking in these external stimuluses, influences, but really sometimes we just have to put that mirror up, look at ourselves, and begin to align ourselves with the life that we want, not what someone else wants or what they have. God has given you a calling. He's giving you resources, different seasons throughout your life, an assignment, and your stewardship journey is unique to you. So instead of asking yourself, why don't I have what they have? Ask, what am I supposed to do with what I've already been given? Because stewardship begins with the responsibility, not the comparison. So contentment is not settling. It's stewarding faithfully exactly where you are. A lot of times we think about this word content. We think we're settling for something and it's a tier below what we want. No, let's begin to align our thought process with where we are holistically in our life. And that's where contentment then is a state of gratitude, a state of being. And it's not a secondary lower level to our goals, our ambitions, and the things that we want in life. So let me begin to recap this for you. I want you to ask yourself honestly, where has comparison been influencing your decisions lately? How has it shown up in your spending, in your saving, and even in your generosity? So I want you to sit with that for a little while. Think about that. What would you change if you stopped measuring your life against someone else's? Let that resonate. What would you begin to change if you stopped measuring your life by what you see or what you hear or your friend group, if you're not influenced by someone else? I think your choices would be a lot different. So quickly here in review, let's just bring this all together. Wise stewards, they identify their comparison triggers. They find out, what exactly am I taking in that's making me feel inadequate? They practice gratitude. That's really the antidote. Being grateful, intentionally grateful about what you have right now, where you are in this current season of life, where you've come from, and even where you're going. Finally, align with your calling and your assignment. Make sure that the values that you have are internally triggered. They're internally directed, and they're not coming from some external worldly place like social media, Instagram, social media, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. There's so many realms where we're just being projected these images and we're letting them land on them and then they resonate. And then we think that that's our thoughts. No, that's the world's influence. So that is how we begin to grow our contentment. That's how our peace return, and then stewardship stays in a healthy place in our life. So I want to give you this question for the week. I want you to ponder this as you go through the rest of your week here. I want you to think about, are your financial goals coming from wisdom or from comparison? I want you to think about your personal goals, your financial goals for yourself. Are they coming from a place of wisdom? Are they coming from a place of purpose? Or are they just coming from a comparison that you have with someone else or something else in your life? Because one will lead to peace and the other will lead you to a place of pressure, a place of anxiety, a place of feeling less than. So inside the MOB community, this is a place where we help you build those value-based financial systems. We help you to eliminate this mindset that causes the financial drift. We help you align your money with your purpose and your faith and develop stewardship that produces peace. So if this has resonated with you tonight, go ahead and jump down in the comments, comment contentment. We'll engage with you, send you a link to the free community, to some resources that you can use to begin to shape, build the blueprint for your financial journey, for your stewardship journey. and we can just have a life that is filled with contentment, purpose, and faith. So just to close us out here, as we get to the midway point of the hour, life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Remember, that was found in Luke chapter 12, verse 15. Don't allow your possessions to become your identity. You're more than your income. You're more than that house, more than that car. And I'm talking to myself now, more than that net worth. Steward is what a steward is what you are. You're a manager. You've been given an assignment, and wisdom says that we should be intentional about that assignment. We should be grateful, and we should be acting from a place of purpose. And that's what will give us peace. So don't let the comparison steal your peace or your joy. And I'll see you next week in our Stewardship in Motion series. Thanks for joining us at the MOB Academy. Now stop scrolling and go mind your business.